Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast. My guest today on Calgary's podcast is Nick Ross, co-founder of HomeSpritz. Thanks for joining us today, Nick.
Mario, glad to be here.
All right, let me ask you first of all, tell me what HomeSpritz is and what it does.
Right. So HomeSpritz is a leading and growing marketplace for homeowners to find house cleaners. So really, what we do is we put a lot of work into finding top percentage of cleaners. These are very experienced cleaners who we test, we interview, we train, and we make sure that they're available on our marketplace for people to easily find, connect with, and hopefully bring into their home and establish a working relationship for hopefully years. Yeah, so that's what we do. We really solve two problems here. This one problem is the homeowner looking for a house cleaner, and on the other side is house cleaners looking for good clients. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of it so far.
So tell me how this all began. Where'd the idea come from and why?
Right, yeah. So I guess anybody who's ever looked for a house cleaner can tell you it's a bit of a pain. And that's been our experience as well. If you're a lucky person, you may know somebody who knows somebody who may recommend a person to come in your house. And letting somebody into your house, that's a bit of it's an intimate thing, right? It's vulnerable. So you want to make sure that the people come into your house are somebody you can trust and somebody who can do a good job. So if you're not a lucky person, you don't know somebody who knows somebody who may recommend you somebody, well, then you're into the weeds. You're into Kijijis, the Facebook marketplaces, or you're into one of the bigger cleaning companies. But then the problem is you don't really know the person. You're hiring a company and you don't know who they hire and you don't know how well they paid. And the person coming into your house week after week may actually change, and often do, as it is the case with these bigger companies. And of course, there's a problem of living wage, but we'll get into that later, I think. Yeah, so with us, it's been a frustrating point. And we started talking to cleaners, started talking to people who get house cleaning regularly, and we kind of found the same recurring themes for everybody. The whole process sucks for everybody. And we thought, hey, there's space for to make it better. For cleaners, what we find is that there's a lot of turnover. Cleaners change companies very often, and that's usually due, and this is very unfortunate, because of being underpaid and undervalued, which goes hand in hand, really. So there's no consistency for house cleaners. We had this crazy idea. We said, what if we treat cleaners really well, and then hopefully that makes them bring more clients and have them stay with us. And that idea is actually kind of working out. Which,
Hmm.
yeah,
And
really,
sorry, when did you start this?
2019, tail end of 2019. Oh,
Okay.
it's kind of crazy to say now. Wow, it's been a few years. Wow.
So tell me, I guess from the perspective of house cleaning, are you finding more and more people are wanting kind of that service? They just, for whatever reason, they don't want to, or they don't have the time to do it themselves.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, house cleaning is absolutely worth it. A plug. Because the thing is, there's a world of difference between a professional doing it and you yourself doing it, right? Getting somebody to come into your house once in a while to do a deep clean, like really go through the stuff, really set up the baseline, and then you just kind of having to upkeep it for a while. It's a lot easier than having to do everything yourself. That's one thing. Second thing is people are busy, right? People have careers, kids, that all takes time, effort, a lot of it. And so house cleaning just makes sense again. And really what makes sense, I think, is for people to have a set up schedule where somebody comes in, once a month, every 6 weeks. Some people do it a lot more, and sort of maintain that baseline of cleanliness in the house. And another thing, pro tip to anybody out there, married guys, house cleaning is a great gift to somebody. So, like, let me set up for, I actually do this. I do this all the time. Suppose you have a date, you go with your wife on a date. While you're gone, somebody comes in and cleans your house. That's amazing. or if you gift somebody a house cleaning, that that's also that's also really cool. I've done it before, and feedback has always been really positive.
Yeah. Nick, what's your background? Like, what were you into before you got into doing this?
Yeah, so my background, my education background is computer science and mathematics, and I've spent last decade building software. Uh, Primarily, I've spent most of the time building financial software, and so only recently was I able to go full time with home spreads. Yeah, so with home spreads, I think we're kind of an interesting case because our co-founders, myself and my partners, we have very different backgrounds. So, I'm the tech guy, I'm the software guy. Also have the finance guy, and we have Yonsel Kang, who's a human relationship specialist who spent over a decade dealing with people in a variety of situations. So I think
Yeah.
it really works out.
So how did you get involved in the software part of it? Like, was this something you've always wanted to do, um, be a software developer?
Well, so my generation would have been growing up in the 90s, early 2000s. We were the first ones, I think, with computers as kind of like a daily driver, right? The first generation. That, of course, I think captivated me because it's the closest thing we have to magic. We
Yeah.
say incantations and we type in the runes and the magic rock does something. So I think I find that I've always found that very enticing to me. Plus, I always liked mathematics, and so I think I really got into programming around university time. Switched to computer science and never looked back really. I mean, uh, being a nerdy person, I programming is my hobby. So, I do it full time and then I do it some more in the evening.
Yeah. Why do you like that so much? What's the appeal to this?
Yeah, I think problem solving and just ability to prototype rapidly. Because think about it, if you want to build, say, an electric motor or something, that takes a lot of work. You have to physically combine things, and if they break, well, you got to get more things and fix them. It takes a long time. Software is something where you can prototype something really rapidly, throw it away, and prototype another thing really rapidly. And so the cost of doing that is nil and allows you to explore effectively infinite amount of spaces and ideas.
Yeah. So when you first started Home Spreads, what were some of the bigger challenges you guys had to face in starting this company?
Right, yeah. So biggest thing, bar none, is hiring because we really aim at hiring top 2%, and it's not like a set in stone target. It's just an emergent quantity because ratio rather, because we do really thorough hiring. It's a very thorough process and it takes a while. But we end up hiring about only 2%, give or take, of the people who apply, and we get a lot of applications. So hiring has always been a um, huge challenge for us, and we're working around sort of trying to not mainstream it, streamline it a little bit
Hmm.
and get it to a point where we can do it faster. Because now we've accumulated some data. We have a lot of cleaners working with us in Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver. So now we're working on ways to making that more streamlined because business is growing. We frankly have to turn people away because we don't have capacity, and so it has been and it's now a problem. Another thing that's been well, not a problem, but it's a challenge is marketing because house cleaning space is very fragmented. There's, as I mentioned, there's few big players, but then vast majority of businesses are actually individual shops, right? And so marketing in that space is a little challenging. And so we didn't have a marketing specialist to begin with, and we're kind of playing a catch-up game.
What about running a business in Calgary? What do you think the benefits and are of having a business in this city?
Oh my God, Calgary is amazing, underrated by a huge margin. Let me just preface this. So we have our demographic, a picture, of what our client is, right? And our client is usually it's families in their mid to late 30s to their 50s, often with kids, households with good income. Well, Calgary is one of those places where all those things really come together, right? We have, because we have a robust economy due to the energy sector and the satellite providers, as well as actually good software sector as well. Because of that, we have robust economy, high incomes, very young population that really fits within that category for us. And so starting out here has been a blessing to us, frankly. Uh, Not to mention, Calgary is just a good place to be in general because it's not a high cost city yet. Uh, Hoping we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's really it's really affordable, and it makes it so we can actually run a business um,
Yeah.
without running massive expenses, right? If we were in Toronto or elsewhere in a high cost area, that would be really different. But
But I guess just as your type of business, you could go run it from anywhere, wouldn't you be able to?
we potentially could, yes.
Yeah.
That's also one of the challenges is now that we're growing, managing time zones is becoming a bit of an issue. We could potentially, absolutely, we could potentially manage it anywhere, but we like Calgary. We're Calgarians. We've been here for forever, and we like this place.
Yeah. What would you tell somebody, especially say a young person who wanted to start up a business, no matter what it was? What advice would you give them?
So I would actually advise them to seek partners. And that's one thing that we learn is that not one person cannot really have all the context necessary to run a business. Because it's a multifaceted
Yeah.
thing. I mentioned, tech, marketing, finance. Holding all of that in one head is nearly impossible. So I would advise people to seek and build network of people, of professionals whom they can have trust with and have similar mindset, similar entrepreneurial mindset, that when the time comes and they have that great idea and they find the funding, that they can actually bring in those people as partners and have a much smoother time of running a business.
Yeah, exactly. When you look at the business, uh, what are you thinking about the future for your business and what you want to do with it?
Oh, there's a lot of things on the horizon. But right now, the name of the game is growth. As I mentioned, we have a lot of demand, and we're really looking at growing across the country, and then in a few years, growing across North America as well. So into the United States and whatnot. Um, but so right now, we're really retargeting the markets we're in already, and we're eyeing up new markets where we're going to be opening up. That's in the near term. And then in the midterm, we're really, because the name of the game for us is really make things so good for cleaners they never ever leave, and then they keep the clients with us. So
Yeah.
a lot of that is going to be our focus in the next few years, where we bring in all sorts of tools for cleaners to manage their business, from doing taxes to really manage all the expenses, to having a training platform, and a bunch of other things. But yeah, those things are in the mid to
I,
long term.
I guess not to put words in your mouth or whatever, but I guess this is a concept that can be rolled out in many other things. Like people need services for lots of stuff, right? Or whatever, lawn care or whatever. Like, is this like a concept that can be rolled out into so many other different services?
They can, though I would caution those willing to try, because we're really focusing on home cleaning, right? And because
Yeah.
we're really focusing on this one area, we really understand the problems of that one area, right? And we really solve the problems there. Um, I think what we've come to understand is that um, different professions have really different challenges, oftentimes. And
Hmm.
that comes from a variety of reasons, right? Just perception, like with home spritz and house cleaning. House cleaning is not considered a profession right now, unfortunately, though it absolutely should be. So it's something we will be trying to change as we grow and exist. But
Yeah.
that's a challenge unique to house cleaning. That's not a challenge, say, that's present with trades that are accredited and have training bodies and whatnot. And so I think it's best to focus and solve the problem really, really well and think
Mhm.
about it, right? And while there is a um, general lesson here that hey, treat worker well, and then the clients will follow. I think that solving individual profession problems one at a time is a better approach.
Now, as an entrepreneur, Nick, are there any other entrepreneurs out there that over time that you've admired or been inspired by?
Oh, well, okay. So as a technical person, right, I would, of course, yeah, I'm gonna name a variety of them that are all in tech and all have to do with technology. Um, I think, uh, I think what I really admire in entrepreneurs and in the tech space is people who generally give back to the community,
Mm.
is people who contribute to something more than they are. For instance, there's a person called DHH. He's a very famous software engineer. He's a creator of Ruby on Rails. And I follow and I get inspired by this man a lot. And he really embodies the giving back, the growing something bigger than oneself.
Mhm.
That's what we're trying to do, and I mean, you see that reflected in HomeSplits as well with our commitment to living wage. Um, 'Cause again, it's the same concept really, where we're trying to do something more than that's what needed, and give back to the community.
Yeah. Is it how important has that become? That aspect of companies, yeah, giving back or having an impact on the communities that they operate in.
Yeah, totally. I mean, think about it. It's really a no-brainer. You want better communities. You want people in your communities to do well. There's not a scenario where that's not the case for anybody. So with us, while our whole idea is to treat cleaner really well, and that part of that is paying really well, is to us, living wage is no-brainer at all. Because and by the way, just for those who don't know, living wage, the idea there's a concept of minimum wage. That's the minimum wage anybody allowed to pay, and then living wage is basically amount of money that actually takes a household to have a dignified living. So we actually pay a little bit more than living wage in all of our markets, and to us it's a no-brainer. Like, yeah, we make a little bit less money, sure, but we have long term we keep cleaners, and that means we keep the clients. So it just makes sense. And of course, on top of that, we get to do amazing things for the community. People make money, right? People can support their families, and that's
Yeah.
great, right? And they want to continue doing this work. Another thing here is if people make good money doing house cleaning, they stay in house cleaning, right? Meaning that they retain the experience, meaning that experience stays with us. And you, if you want to get an amazing job done to your house being cleaned, you come to where the experience is. And so again, it's
Yeah.
a no-brainer.
Yeah, exactly. What about you, Nick? With outside of spending time, behind the computer and and running the business, what do you do to relax, I guess, spend time for yourself?
Yeah. Well, so we recently had two kids. So they're one's just over two, the other one's just under two. So that's really taken over a lot
Yeah.
of my. I guess anybody with kids will tell you that. But I've always been a musician. I've always played
Oh,
guitar in a variety of bands here in Calgary. Often play live. So I'm looking to get back into that really. And so and now my focus is really on kind of spending time with my family, but also finding time to just exercise and take care of myself with all the craziness.
do you think obviously with being entrepreneur, like many are in the same boat, right? And they spend almost like 24/7, it seems, building a business and running a business, and then if they have family, then they've got that. But how important is it to for any entrepreneur to spend time for themselves and to work on themselves, both, I guess, physically and health and mentally.
I think it's really important. From a perspective of running a business, if if you fail, as in if you run out of steam at
Mm.
some point, your business fails, right? So
Yeah,
there is actually very much a need for you to take care of yourself to make sure you actually keep going so that the
yeah,
business may go on. So from that perspective, absolutely. From a personal perspective, I mean, family is the most important things we have, really. Work come and goes, but your kids are only going to be babies once. So,
yeah,
you want to make sure you spend the time with them. And from just perspective of keeping yourself healthy and alive, that just has impact on everything you do. I mean, I know that I do better work when I'm well rested, when I exercise, I feel great. That's just a given. That's just a
yeah.
given. And in fact, I just had this conversation with somebody I know, and they are an entrepreneur here in Calgary. And they were saying how, after neglecting their body for 15 years or so, just really driving hard,
Yeah.
building business hard, and now it's finally catching up to them in their 50s, right? And that's something I would, I'm looking at that as a lesson, as a warning to myself, and so really paying attention.
Yeah, I think it should. I think everyone, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, should heed that warning, right? And well, that's excellent. So I'm curious, what instrument do you play in music?
I play guitar and bass guitar. Um,
Okay, and
yeah, try. Sorry?
what kind of music do you play?
Mostly hard rock and metal. So always played that. So though recently acquired more of a taste for lighter kinds of music, just a bit more chill.
Does it relax you to get behind, with a car guitar and
Oh my
play?
God, so much. I think this is part of creative process as well. If you're writing a song, and it just kind of like takes your mind in a very different place than work would, and so you're creative in a different way.
But
And
you're the obviously the mathematical thing, right? But there is quite a connection between the math side of things and music, right?
I I guess so, yeah. It's very rational, especially in the Western music. It's all not very formulaic, but there's a lot of formula, right? Like anybody who studied musical theory will tell you that there's a lot, it's a lot of learning. Um, and yeah, I guess so. I guess there is a connection. I never looked at it that way, but I think you're right. I think you're right in that. But it's
Yeah,
also something about, like the mind-body connection, dexterity of your fingers, and you happen to think through the piece you're playing. There's something to that that's uh, I think is energizing to the mind and body.
yeah, excellent. All right. Well, wonderful. Thanks so much, Nick, for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, that was Nick Ross, who is co-founder of HomeSplits. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast, today with Calgary's podcast. Thanks for joining us.